Hey, Pastor Steve Waldron, I hope you're having a great day or night in Jesus. We're so thankful you're here with us. We're going to do a little review on the Bishop's Bible, 1568. I've done some comparisons of the Bishop Bible and maybe the King James, Geneva, I can't remember over the years. But we're just going to look at the Bishop's Bible. Why was it created? So again, thank you for being here. So the text base of the Bishop's Bible is basically, obviously, the Masoretic text. It's going to be the basic Bamberg text of 1525 that's still considered extraordinarily accurate. And then the Textus Receptus. It's going to be, with very few exceptions, basically identical to the King James as that. As a matter of fact, the King James technically is just an update of the Bishop's Bible. So why did the Bishop's Bible come to pass? Let me give us a little history here. A lot of it you may know, maybe some you don't. But you had King Henry VIII, King Henry VIII, I am. You know, you've heard that. Well, he made the English Bible legal for everybody in the British Isles in the 1530s, basically about 1536, basically simultaneous with Tyndale getting burned at the stake at Vilvoorde Castle on October 6th, 1536. And so there was a lot of pent-up demand. Tyndale was getting burned at the stake for putting the Bible in English, which I have a lot of people tell me, oh no, the Bible was legal. Well, no, they were burning people at the stake for having the Bible. And it was the death penalty for having the Bible. If you went to a bishop and asked and all this, that there were sometimes, especially if you were wealthy, you could get a copy of the Bible. But by and large, for everybody else, you could not get a copy of the Bible. And so, actually, Tyndale's Bible created modern English. He wanted a perfect receptor language of Hebrew, Greek, and Aramaic. And so then, towards the end of his life, King Henry VIII started kind of recanting on that and starting to forbid the Bible again. Well, the next boy king that came after him, he just lived a few years, but he really pushed Bible reading after he died in 1553. You had Bloody Mary come to the throne, and the first two of 300 plus people she had put to death were, you guessed it, Bible translators. Then in 1558, you have Queen Elizabeth, and as they say, she of blessed memory, that she reigned until basically 1603 when King James came to the throne. So she had a very long reign, and it was a very determined Protestant reign, Anglican reign, and she was constantly at odds with the Catholic Church. This is the deal with the Spanish Armada in 1588. This is the deal with Mary, Queen of Scots, who she had put to death, on and on. And so during Bloody Mary's reign, you had several very famous scholars from the British Isles move to Geneva, Switzerland. And in 1557, they came out with the Geneva New Testament. In 1560, they came out with the Geneva Bible. And so it was immediate success. It had verse numbers. It was the latest Greek text of Stephanos, and just a lot things going, a lot of notes in there, and a lot of anti-monarchical notes. So in response to that and its popularity, and it maintained popularity for about 100 years, and many would say still to this day, King James eventually ran it off the field, and yes, they did make the Geneva Bible technically illegal, and a lot of people say that's the only reason the King James won the day. Maybe, but it's probably a superior translation as well. Whittingham, those guys did a great job on it, though. And so you had 17, 18 bishops get together at the Queen's behest to come out with a Bible really to compete against the Geneva Bible. And it was supposed to be more of a clerical type Bible. That's the reason the Bishop's Bible is so big, because it was supposed to be in churches, to be read in churches. Whereas the Geneva Bible, it was handier. They did have some folios, big ones, of the Geneva Bible, but a lot of them were smaller, and it dramatically continued to outsail the Bishop's Bible because of that. And then there was a revision of the Bishop's Bible. Scratch that. I'm thinking of the Geneva Bible 1599, a little bit of a revision, but the Bishop's Bible had some tremendous scholarship that went into it. And what had happened is Queen Elizabeth had funded, because the whole thing with the Reformation, the Catholic Church, just kind of a lot of chaos there, is the Bible had come to, the Reformation countries had come to the conclusion of sola scriptura, the Bible alone, and he basically didn't have a lot of separation of church and state. So they were saying the Bible is going to be the source of our civilization. The Catholic Church says that's fine, we have the Vulgate, but since you need an infallible interpreter of this Bible as well, and that would be the church. And so notice they didn't say like sola churcha, they said sola scriptura. So that was a real battle the Catholic Church was saying. And so the Catholic Church, using all of their enormous scholarship, would come and have, when an English Bible would come out, they'd kind of pick it apart. And not just an English Bible, really any Reformation Bible, they'd say it should have been translated this way, it should have been translated that way, this is a mistranslation here. So Queen Elizabeth started what was known as Regius Professorships at like Westminster, Cambridge, and Oxford, where she said, we're going to have people dedicating their lives to studying biblical languages, all the cognate languages, and all the literature of Hebrew and Greek and Aramaic, even if it's not biblical in nature. So they will know these languages perfectly. Like Andrew Downes would be there over 40 years. John Boyce would start at 12 years old. By the time he was 5, he had already read the New Testament through in Hebrew, not Greek and not Old Testament. The New Testament through in Hebrew, and at 12, he gets into Greek studies. And so then he studies under Andrew Downes. There's records of them studying at these Regius Professorships and things for, it's starting at 4 a.m. and ending at 8 p.m. This was not an isolated thing. It seemed to be a fairly regular occurrence. And so this is why they were such trained linguists. This was their whole goal of life, because it was a life or death thing. I mean, you have the Spanish Armada, you've got, all these, many would say the gunpowder plot and all this, that's battle between the institutionalized church, the Catholic Church, and Protestant churches. I mean, people are dying here. People are getting burned at the stake, and there's interdicts and all of this kind of stuff saying if you kill this monarch, you're going to go to heaven, kind of thing. And so, and you don't have to obey the monarch either. You have to obey the church. So that's kind of the background to how the Bishop's Bible came to be. And as far as the Greek and Hebrew manuscripts, you had a Daniel Bomberg who converted, he was like a converted Jew, who did the Masoretic text in 1525, 1526. So it was considered to just be a slam dunk, great Old Testament text. And then in the New Testament, beginning with Erasmus, who had access to all the libraries of Europe, being the last man who knew everything. He was considered by many people the smartest man who ever lived. And this is the reason it's really a joke to say he only had 5 or 6 manuscripts. No, he had access to hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of manuscripts. And then he used several that were representative of what he knew. And this is very clear in his textual apparatus that he knew of various other readings and stuff like this. And so he did 5 editions of the Greek Bible. And so you had another thing happen in 1453 with the fall of Constantinople, the Byzantine Empire, by the Muslims, that all the Greek-speaking East all flooded West and brought all their manuscript tradition with them as well, and a revival of Greek. And this is what gave rise, in most people's mind, to the Renaissance. We understand it started a little bit before that too. But and with the printing press as well, Johannes Gutenberg, in 1453, 54, 55, that's a whole nother story, and you've read it, and I've told it numerous times, that he wasn't just some altruist man. He was making money on this till they arrest somebody he had selling the Bibles in France, because they had an identical copy that the king had and the bishop had there in Paris. And they said the only way this happens is witchcraft. So the guys in jail finally said, look, we've got a printing press. I understand the Chinese had something very similar to that several hundred years before that, or a few hundred years anyhow. Chinese civilization was very advanced, fireworks, all this. And the Muslim civilization in certain aspects, Averroes and all this, was very advanced in mathematics in some ways, some cases. And so you have all this coming. And so then you have like Robert Stephanus, who does, again, 5 editions. And then you had another gentleman who did 10 editions, and he had just an enormous about Theodore Bezet of manuscript traditions to work at. And so that's where you got the underlying Greek and Hebrew text from. So the Bishop's Bible, extraordinarily accurate. A lot of people still really like it today. It's kind of nouveau and avant-garde to really use the Geneva Bible. There's a lot of people that use the Geneva Bible. There's a lot of editions of it coming out, it seems. I remember back 20, 30 years ago when I first started studying all this and working on it, it was hard to get a copy of the Geneva Bible. And now you're just getting them, kind of major publishers are doing the Geneva Bible and stuff. And some people really like the Matthew's Bible, the Coverdale Bible. I love the Tyndale Bible. But to me, they're just not as good as the King James Bible. And it's not just English Bibles. You had the Diodate version and the Olivetan version and all this in other languages. Basically, they were Protestant Reformation Bibles, Luther Bible, obviously, using extremely similar text base, and they were highly skeptical of anything that came from Rome. So they were trying to get pure Christians, what they felt were pure Christians, outside the Catholic Church through the years. And what Bibles did they use? And that's the reason the King James Version didn't just use Hebrew and Greek and Aramaic and cognate languages, Arabic and all this. They said Polish, Spanish, all kinds of stuff, because they're wanting to see what was that tradition. And they had a mandate from the king that at the king's expense, they could get any scholar, any manuscript around the world that they needed to complete their task. So that's one reason the King James Bible is so extraordinary, stood the test of time. And it's an update of the Bishop's Bible, which is fantastic. And there's very few differences, almost no substantial differences, but a few between it and the King James Bible and the Geneva Bible too. A lot of people would still, just on purely translational grounds, they would prefer the Geneva Bible over the Bishop's Bible. So that's the Bishop's Bible. Just love the Bible. Pray the Bible. Live the Bible. It's going to judge us. God bless. We love you. We'll talk with you later in Jesus' name. Thanks for being with us. Join us daily.